think Jan has prepared some slides and a little presentation. And I'm curious about Jan. Can I volunteer you?
As you wish.
Yay.
I don't mind. First of all, then I'll try to share my screen. Since I'm this one. Let's see how this is. No,
yes,
we can see
screen,
something.
but not yet in presenting
mode. Do you see the presentation mode now?
No.
Okay. I see it and I don't see you guys anymore, so...
Otherwise we can go first before while you...
Presenting...
I recently learned a hack though. Can we also share tool hacks?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
So if you go on on the PowerPoint, if you open PowerPoint,
yes.
and then you go on slideshow up in the, how do you call that? In the tabs, and then you go on setup show, and you click on browse by an individual window. Browsed by an individual window. And then if you share a PowerPoint presentation with full screen, it won't take up your entire screen, but leaves space for everyone else.
Oh, so that you're able to see the people as well? Oh, okay, that's quite nice.
Perfectly. So wait, you go to slideshow?
Yes. Do you want me to share my screen and show you? This is applied facilitation where we can learn everyone from each other.
Otherwise, it's the fourth from the left. Fourth icon from the left in the tab bar.
Diaborstelling.
I'm not sure that I pronounce it correctly.
Yes.
Not that one.
Oh, or the
next to it.
Diedernaast. Yeah, the one next to it.
Yeah, I used to work with Teams, and in Teams integration.
We can do it afterwards. We see your screen perfectly now, Jan, and then Miriam, you can quickly show it later if you want. Perfect.
Maybe you can show me in France. Anyway, where I'll be talking about is how we can facilitate change. Myself, I'm Jan Beuls. I'm from Belgium, and my career started in a small company, which gave me an opportunity, which actually started my whole career. I never knew that I would start with digitizing companies, but by starting digitizing companies, I started in a small company where they asked me to digitize. And I learned very fast that resistance was the first thing what was holding me back. Later on, I became independent. I became a consultant in, first of all, digitizing companies. But since more and more I was getting problems with change, I started specializing in that. At this moment, I do the projects in which resistance is a major factor, in which I can really grow, learn, and experience a lot of things. How we can help companies over everything which concerns change, which concerns resistance. And I'm going to share today one of my major lessons, one of my major insights. I can't explain it in detail because I only have 10 minutes, but I want to give one key takeaway that I had until now, which helped me guide people through our change. Later on, I'll also explain what I would like to do in France with you guys. But the first and the main question is, what is the main issue about change? And for me, if there's no resistance, there's no change. If we really want to get people towards another state, towards something new, we will encounter resistance. And it's not, if we talk about change management, it's not the change which is a problem, it's the resistance which is a problem. And as you guys, all of you are facilitators, facilitators are not facilitating the current state. You're also always facilitating from the current state towards something new. You all want to bring somehow change. You all will somehow encounter resistance. And the main question is, how do we cope with it? And that's what I would like to ask you guys. How can we rationally counter resistance? Does someone know? Is someone who has an answer?
I don't think you can do it rationally. Well, I try to do it in different parts of my life, rationalizing things, and sometimes it's just a feeling that somehow, well, that's my best guess for now.
I think you're spot on. According to me, resistance is emotion, and you can only cope with resistance if you can cope with emotion. And although a lot of people who get resistance start to rationalize things and try to give it an explanation why you should or you should not do something, it ain't gonna work. It will not work because people are in an emotional state. I do know that the main breakthroughs in my life come from experiencing something. I was some moment and at a key moment in my life in which I was in a toxic relationship. I had to get out. It was not rationally that I could get out of it. It was purely based on emotion. Someone who could make me feel good again, who triggered me to get out of this uncomfortable situation. It's all about the feeling, which is perfectly described in what's, according to me, one of the best theories in change management, and that's the Kubler-Ross, in which I'm not going to be able to explain this in a couple of minutes, but the main thought about it is whenever anyone goes through change, they always go through different bad emotions, such as frustration, anger, depression, before they can get back upwards. You have to go down to go up again. Even the smallest changes will get you through this. If I look at an example in my own life, when I started living together with my girlfriend and we had to put the insurances together, I ran through this. It was like the first time she said, I have a good insurance company, I was thinking like mine is good as well. I had resistance immediately, although at this moment we almost all the insurances put at her company's place because the rates were best. They had the best offer, but I had to go through anger, depression. I had to go through it. And you know what's for me the most typical thing about this theory is Kubler-Ross is actually a theory made. You see it on the subscript on death and dying. This theory is made how we say goodbye to people, how we grieve. This is what this theory is made of. If we say goodbye to ideas, goodbye to ways we've been working, goodbye to all those things, we go to exactly the same emotional state as we say goodbye to people we loved. So this really gives for me a big insight to start with change, how we can manage change. This is for me a major insight. And if I look to myself, my personal life, mountains are a big part of it. I'm an alpinist. I'm a mountaineer, and I learned as well that one is something which enables me in the sense of I seek resistance myself. I go through anger. I go through depression whenever I climb a mountain. I've learned to feel the emotions and how to cope with it. And for me, the mountains are a way to do so. So whenever you come to France, you'll probably hear some of my mountain stories as well, linked towards how we can cope with resistance. that's for me a major insight that I took from my life, from how to cope with change. But actually, what will we be doing in France? First of all, I just talked about emotions and that we have to, sometimes we feel things. I also believe that whenever we want to transmit a message, feeling is the first thing we got to make sure. So I'll do everything I can to make people feel the message before we learn the message. Of course, there will be some theories that I'll explain just to give some framework. But besides the theories only don't do the work according to me. I really want to get people involved. I really want to have interaction. I want to have people literally moving, because change is a kind of moving. So I really want to get people moving and stuff according to all the aspects we'll be handling. For myself, I do have a bunch of possible topics that I want to speak about. I don't know yet which one to choose. There still has to be chosen from my side, which is always very hard because I'd love to talk about everything, but I only get 3 hours, of course, which I also want to spend as efficient but as meaningful as possible. So I'll probably first of all send a questionnaire before to know what you guys really want and are busy with, on which I can make the best decisions for you guys, because it's, of course, I want to give you guys tools and insights that bring you guys further as a facilitator. Although, where did I thought of? For me, I guess it can be very nice for you guys to know through which phases organizations go through whenever change happens, and through which people go, and besides that, what people need to do during those phases. If you know what people need, you can make facilitation, you can make workshops which are based on those needs. I do have a key skill about facilitating. I'm not going to tell it here. I'm going to tell you guys in France. So, which I really love to share, because if you got this one, it goes a whole lot easier. I'd like to talk how we can cope with resistance during workshops. What do we do if someone really get into resistance? How can we get through with that one? I have some do's and don'ts I'd love to share with you guys. And of course, how can we use workshops within the whole thing of change management? Which part can workshops do within change? How can we use workshops as a tool to enable change, to enable movement into an organization? And last one, I'll probably don't have time during the sessions, but if someone is interested afterwards, I do have an interaction model which changed the way I look about interaction to other people, which can be useful as well. So I do have a lot of inspiration. I still do have a lot of big choices to make, but for sure it's going to be valuable. I don't know if there are any questions about this one.
No,
I have a question. I have
Go ahead,
one.
Angel.
Yeah, and so I guess for me the question is what happens, this might be in your tips and tricks, but what happens if you have a workshop and you have some people that really embrace change and others that are so resistant, so you have to manage a workshop where they're at different stages of this change that might be happening?
That's a very good question. First of all, make sure everyone gets understood. If you do so, I guess it's very important as well to look into the company, what's happening there. Why are those people on a different level, and what do they need? If I'm going to explain the different levels or the different phases people go through our change, you'll see whatever they need, and it might be possible that during a workshop, people have different needs. I would try to get this topic earlier arranged with management, that you're sure that everyone who is in a workshop has the same needs. But that makes that the workshop needs to be within a bigger plan of change.
Yeah.
It all starts with what's the goal of the workshop, and if you have a good goal within the workshop which fits one of the phases of change, it's going to be clear for everyone. If you're trying to push someone in a phase in which he or she is not yet prepared for, you won't get any impact. So it doesn't matter how hard you try. If someone is not ready to get into the next phase, you won't get him by giving all the information to do so. So being realistic and take a step back for those who need it. Don't push through, because you're only going to push resistance. But if I have a little more time, we can deeply talk about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we probably don't have enough time to go into detail into this, and also for future questions. But I think it's probably interesting to know if there is a way that you know how to solve questions, but also for the other speakers, and if it's something to be covered maybe during the retreat, so that people know if they join, that they will get the nuggets in all its detail there, because unfortunately today we probably don't have enough time to do all the details. I totally forgot to introduce you, Jan. So there was a reason why we chose Jan, or chose the topic of, well, there were reasons why we chose Jan, but the main thing is we wanted someone to talk about change for facilitators, and that is all to do with AI. AI is a very hot topic right now. AI is disrupting a lot of companies. A lot of people are afraid of what it will bring. They might lose their jobs. And since most of you are facilitators, we already know, okay, facilitation is a very good way to generate buy-in from people and to get them aligned. But we thought that it was super interesting to also have someone with actual change management experience to help us, teach us some tricks on how to help people move through change. And I think, Jan, with the topics that you mentioned, that we're going to see that in a lot of details during the retreat. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I don't know if anyone else still has a quick question for Jan. If not, Annette, then I maybe want to introduce you, if that's okay. And if you, Jan, can, yeah, perfect, indeed. Then we see everyone again. The reason, well, there was also a very specific topic that we wanted to cover on this retreat. Last year on the retreat, we saw that a lot of people were super open in the group. They shared their stories, they shared successes, but they also shared some failures that they had, or some difficulties, things that they had trouble with. And one of the phrases or one of the words that I didn't expect to hear so much at the retreat, but we heard a lot, was there was a lot of psychological safety, they said. And it was something that we've heard also in the feedback, but during the event as well, that people really felt, okay, I feel safe talking about issues. It's a nice group. I know I won't get judged. And for us, it was super interesting for me and Katrine. We were super happy with the feedback. But the fact was, and we'll be honest about it, we didn't really do something to introduce the psychological safety in the group. It was more something that kind of happened. And of course, with the people that were there, was specific audience, of course. But it's not like, apart from being authentic and being open about our own struggles about the event, there was not something that we really did. And then we thought, okay, psychological safety as a facilitator, as a coach, as a trainer is super relevant as well. So let's see if we can find someone who can talk on the topic. And then we searched and searched some more. And then in the end, on the other way across the ocean, we found Annette, who had years of experience, wrote some books, did a lot of research herself. And we thought it was a perfect match to teach us some more about psychological safety. And for the rest, Annette, I'll let you do the talking and do your own introduction.
Thank you. I'm really excited about us getting to hang out. Okay. So I'm going to probably be the oldest person there. I am 63 years old, right? So I've been trying to understand psychological safety since I was a kid, because lucky me, I did not grow up in a safe home. And so I think one of the things that we have to understand is that we need, in order to, oh, wait, can I see everybody? I don't want to just see me. Is that okay?
Yeah, sorry. Is this
I like
working?
to see faces.
This should be working.
Thank you. Yes, I need faces. Okay, so I started studying psychology when I was 13 years old. My parents were crazy, but Daddy was a social worker, and so he would bring books. Now, when I was 13 years old, it was 1974, okay? And so, oh, by the way, Jan, I love that you pulled a model from 1969. One of my messages is there is just a wealth of stuff that has been forgotten in the meantime that is really useful. So anyway, I studied transactional analysis, rational emotive therapy. My parents were divorced, and so my dad would bring me these books where we would then have a discussion. He was a little controlling. We would then have a discussion, after school before we went to grandmother's house for dinner. And so I'm getting exposed to all this stuff that I actually really needed at the time, how to self-manage my own fear. I was walking around pretty paranoid. That's what happens. And you end up creating danger in ways you don't even know you're doing it. And so it was just so nice to find some low-hanging fruit. Like, how can I make a difference instead of trying to figure out how the world was going to change? And discovered a lot of cool things. Now, I wanted to study psychology, but Dad didn't want to pay for a psychology degree. He said that was a waste of time. So I studied marketing and got a business degree in marketing, which is really psychology. It may even be a more rigorous form, because if you're not good at it, you don't get to do it again. And then I was supposed to go to law school, but I cannot tell you how much I did not want to go to law school. So I met a guy in a bar in New Orleans who lived in Australia, and I moved to Australia. Now, this is where the international stuff comes. I mean, I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was the total ugly American, and Australians will not tolerate that crap. So through practical jokes and lots of significant emotional experiences, they retrained me to realize that America is not the center of the world. And culturally, so one of the big things, and we'll talk about narrative, but one of the big things is in America, the narrative I was taught to believe is that I'm supposed to brag on myself. I'm good at this, this, and this. And in Australia, they have what they call the tall poppy syndrome. Believe me, so tall poppy is the one that rises above the rest, gets snipped off. I had lots of experiences like that. And it really introduced me to the idea of intercultural awareness. Because while I was working for Ericsson Telecommunications, a Swedish company that practically owned the telecommunications work in Australia, and then I worked for J. Walter Thompson, at the same time, I was learning that the patterns. And so that's what I started out with, is patterns. And psychological safety is much easier when you understand the stories people tell themselves about why they are afraid. And Jan is talking about this, and I'm right with him, because understanding the story of where they are at the time is a good way to get them to, and this is my work, is to build self-awareness and learn how to self-regulate. When I went back to grad school, I studied you know, so the pop psychology was in the 60s, 70s, 80s. When I got to grad school, specifically to study groups, I wanted to know the psychology of a group. And I learned that beyond Argyris, there's Bohm on dialogue. There's some amazing resources and models available for us there. And then I went to work actually facilitating self-awareness workshops, which is a 3-day intensive kind of pressure cooker sort of situation where people have the opportunity to become more aware of how they create their own problems, which is what we're trying to do a lot of times in creating, you know, psychological safety. I learned, and there's stuff that by the way, I'm giving you everything I have. I'm retired. Because of health reasons, I don't travel that much anymore. So you can have everything I've learned over the last 40 years. And I have a presentation that talks about psychological safety specifically, but then we can, so here's my books. It's like, I wrote a book on territorial games, which is the 10 behaviors that would probably sufficiently describe resistance that Jan is talking about. So intimidation, strategic non-compliance, which is they go, sure, we'll do that, and then they don't. Invisible walls, shunning. Shunning is a really powerful way of creating danger in a group. And then I thought, well, if I would just teach them that these games are actually, they think somebody else started it, but they actually started it, that they would stop playing the games. Well, what I learned is, and so the way I present this and what I'll give you is the 10 games on a PowerPoint. And then we're talking about all those idiots out there and all the things they do to diminish psychological safety. And then after about 15 minutes of making this presentation, you ask the group, so do you think maybe you do some of these things every now and then? And so we sneak a little self-awareness in and get the group to build a group self-awareness. So that they're highly aware of what it is they want to do and what their bad habits are that usually sabotage it. So I've worked with clients at city, local, federal level. I've worked with hospitals. I've worked with Microsoft. Recently, I did work with Meta, training their super genius techies how to make a presentation. So anyway, I wrote Safe Place for Dangerous Truth, which is after I named the games, I realized that we had to facilitate this group into seeking and wanting that dangerous truth and to make it luscious and exciting, and an adventure. And so I facilitated groups between conservative and gay Christians. Impasse was my thing. Military intelligence after 9/11, when, you know, they were going to take 10 agencies and try to squash it in. So it's basically like 10 brothers coming into the room and 7 of them, you know, get to survive and they have to decide which 3 die. I mean, you know, these are tough situations. And getting people to come to an awareness where they're actually willing to sacrifice, because that's what psychological danger is, a feeling that I'm going to be taken advantage of. But collaboration is deciding to be vulnerable anyway and share information. And so what Jan was talking about, changing the emotional course of a discussion, it helps when they are in on it. And so I teach the 10 games. And then Safe Place for Dangerous Truth. I have a model for dialogue that's purely, there's no words. It's all visuals. I use visuals a lot because people can argue over words. But when you show a picture, it's worth 1,000 words. One of the things that I do is have people draw a metaphor map of what their part of the organization is like. And when they bring these metaphor maps, of course, you need to have skills, because sometimes these reveal things that are a little scary. but everybody gets a say. And what Jan was talking about is like everybody has to be heard or feel like they've been heard before they can come to this place where they're willing to collaborate and move forward. And so I have some fast ways of creating a chance for people to share feeling states without feeling dangerous. The first thing we'll do is I have a postcard exercise, and people use metaphors to say, this is, how I'm feeling today. And you get them grounded in that. And then what happens is that it has shifted the power away from you. You're no longer the boss. You're starting to shift the power into the group, because we cannot take responsibility for their psychological safety. Our job is to coach them into establishing for themselves a level of psychological safety. And one of the ways I do that is through storytelling. So this one is in 3rd edition. It's The Story Factor. That's my most popular book. It was one of 3 women of the 100 best business books of all time, published in 2007. And then whoever tells the best story wins. Which is kind of a facilitation of how to come up with stories. I think there are 6 kind of stories you need to know how to tell. A group wants from you. They want to know who you are. They want to know why you're here. They want to know your values in action, because we can say integrity, but it means different things in different situations. So a story is a way to say something that can't be told in any other way. You let them witness and decide for themselves. And then teaching stories, vision stories, and I know what you're thinking stories. So I know what you're thinking stories are great for coming into a situation where it's a scary place, but you can, on behalf of those people who may not want to go first, you can tell a story that simulates what their experience is and gets them a chance to actually feel it out. Through the fear, the frustration, the anger, and then into acceptance and trying to accomplish something. So my future agenda is just to make myself available to you as a coach for free whenever you want me, because all I want to do for the next decade is help people doing good work. And I'm in pretty good shape, so I can do that. So I'm gonna end with a story that I actually use. My dog Larry was a greyhound. He's since passed, and Larry didn't know how to be a pet when he came home. He had always been a jock dog, on the track, and so Larry had to learn to be a pet, and he would chase a bone around the backyard until he made the intellectual leap that if he put his paws on it, it would actually stay still. So I got to watch him learn lots of things. But one thing that he never seemed to grab was that if he walked on one side of a telephone pole and I walked on another when he was on the leash, we weren't going anywhere. And, I could say I'm the boss, I'm the facilitator, you do this. But the truth is that until I backed off, he wouldn't back off. And so many times going forward is actually coming backwards so that we can regroup and then move forward together. Now, when I tell that story, everybody knows I am not talking about my dog, Larry. And one of the things that we have to deal with is the egos in the room. And so one of the things that I try to do is connect the egos to actually displaying psychological safety, to showing the behaviors that make other people believe, actually have faith that this group is safe, and self-regulate themselves into a new consensus. So that's me. I don't know did I go over time?
No, it's
I had
okay.
planned to press my thing here.
The timer. And no, well, thanks for the stories, and of course going a little bit deeper than my very brief introduction. Does anyone have some very, well, let's call it high level questions, maybe about certain topics or certain situations that might if Annette might share some more stories about that on the retreat, anything in particular. So maybe Annette can prepare a little bit better as well, if there's any specific insights. I see Jan is unmuted.
Yeah. Are you busy with healing emotions as well? Is that a topic?
It's the topic. Healing is by definition saying that your emotions are wrong and that you need new ones. So to a certain extent, validating is really more important to me. And then once someone feels validated, then they can move to the next stage.
It's going to be interesting.
Definitely. Tom, feel free to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also curious to, if possible, hear a bit about using storytelling at the beginning of a session to introduce yourself, to make a connection to the audience. But I also always like to sort of let people show something about themselves and their private life, instead of just saying, "Hi, I'm Tom, and this is my job." You know, if you make a round like this, it's very dry and it doesn't really make a connection within the group. So I always try to add a question or a story or something so that people open up a bit, even in groups that already know each other. So with your knowledge about storytelling, might be interesting to hear a bit about connecting people within a workshop, maybe at the beginning of the workshop already.
Yeah, it's storytelling is the best facilitation tool out there. So I will show you how to use stories at the beginning to set the tone. And again, people want to know who you are and why you're here. So you need to satisfy. They don't want any more of your damn information. What they want is faith. Faith that you know what you're doing and that you were here for the right reasons. And so that's one of the stories. Another one of the stories that you can tell is an I know what you're thinking story, which is you already know what the problem is and nobody's willing to say it. I remember one time I facilitated dialogue, and the guy who told me what was wrong behind closed doors never said anything. We had an opportunity in the larger group. And he was like, well, it's just like skinny dipping. You don't want to go first. And so that's an example of a story I might tell when people are showing resistance. And it's so rich. We can even do, so my presentation will be about storytelling for psychological safety and other tools. But I'm happy to do a session on how to facilitate story sharing. I have some little tricks up my sleeve. People are afraid to share something personal. You know, that's a vulnerability. And so while it's not a cheap psychological trick, it is moving them to the story sharing so quickly that instead of being afraid, they're already amazed at how deep the stories go and the connections go. So I have lots to say about that. And I'm quite happy to do, you know, side sessions and stuff.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Miriam, then we are, well, for Annette and for Jan, it was quite easy to introduce them because it was a very specific topic that we had in mind that we wanted to get covered on the retreat. Of course, we also wanted someone to talk about pure facilitation or really had a facilitation background. You have lots of interesting topics. I particularly like the one about asking good questions, but I think also one of the main reasons that we'd love to have you at the retreat is we know how difficult it is, and I think a lot of people know how difficult it is to create a thriving facilitation business. And I think you have, I don't know any numbers, but I think you have a thriving facilitation business. You have nice clients. You also have a community with some extra things that you do. So I think the main reason for us is on two sides. One, get some more of your facilitation expertise, because there we really think you're one of the top facilitators that we know inside of the network. But on the other hand, also learn from you, like what it is to start a facilitation business, because it's it's a very nice dream, but it is also difficult to achieve. So yeah, I'm really glad that, because there was a little problem with the agenda, so we had to regroup a little bit to see what was possible. I'm still very happy that you're still able to make it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you. So maybe you can enlighten us a little bit more about the topics that you want to cover, or maybe something more that you want to share during the retreat.
Yeah. For those who don't know me, I maybe most know me from my podcast. So I launched a podcast 272 weeks ago. So I'm publishing an episode every week. So that helps me keep on track. And consistency is key. That was my number one business lesson, and maybe lesson for life. I would call myself an accidental facilitator. I am a recovering academic. I did a PhD in behavioral economics. So similar to Annette, I studied psychology without putting the label of psychology on top of it. So behavioral economics is all about the intersection between social psychology and economics. We study human behavior, and I run for my PhD experiments to observe and study how we can nudge people to take different decisions and maybe even better decisions. Fast forward, I left academia, different story. Started my redesign of my own life adventure and realized that what I have studied as an academic, designing experiments to study human behavior and group dynamics, is actually a very helpful skill to design workshops in a way that help groups take decisions that are maybe helpful for them and work better together to achieve common goals. So that's how I got into facilitation. And that was, so 2018, I started calling myself facilitator because before that, I didn't even know the word. I'm German. In Germany, we call that Moderator. And Moderator has nothing to do with facilitation. And I read Priya Parker's book, The Art of Gathering. And I was sitting there, jumping off the couch, taking a stack of sticky note and a Sharpie and writing down, I am a facilitator. Because it was for the first time that I realized, oh, geez, there's a name for what I'm doing. And I'm not the only person on earth who's doing that. Because I was curious and I was kind of tired of pitching myself as a facilitator and everyone going like, what? Are you a coach? Are you a consultant? Are you a moderator? What are you doing? I said, I'm a facilitator, facilitate workshops. Oh, are people still doing that? So I started the podcast because I wanted to create a marketing engine to promote the role of a facilitator and the tool of a workshop. And everything I know about facilitation, I learned from my guest on the show. Lots of moments. And accidentally, I started a community because I hosted a festival, an online festival, when the pandemic hit. Lost all of my clients. Like, I think at the beginning, 99% of all facilitators worldwide, everything dropped. Maybe there were a few who were specialized in online facilitation back then. And this festival led into, became a community. And through the community, I accidentally started an agency. So now at the moment, I'm running a facilitation community, facilitation agency, and I have some clients myself. So yeah, I have lots of lessons of how to build a facilitation business. Maybe also some lessons on how to destroy it. Maybe some counterintuitive lessons that sometimes we have to thrive for the no. And sometimes losing a client or breaking up with a client is the best thing to create new business. For the community, I host a monthly money meetup. So we speak about money, about charging, about all these conversations that are difficult. So yes, this is me in a nutshell. For the retreat, though, I don't want to talk about myself. I would love to. There are a few topics that are close to my heart, and yes, I can. And it might make sense to really have a session on how to design and structure a workshop. So it always has a beginning, it always has a middle, it always has an end. And how do we combine that, right? Some like icebreakers, some don't like icebreakers. Why do we need icebreakers? Some call them ice melters. At the end of the day, it's a way to start a workshop or a gathering, and it's a way to create a sense of psychological safety. But what shall we do? What is appropriate and what is close to us so that it feels authentic? Because I think the first thing as a facilitator is that we have to find our own voice. We lead by example. If I am confident, if I can be authentic, if I feel safe myself, then I guarantee that it will be easier to create a sense of safety for the group and invite them to be authentic themselves. In order to be authentic, I don't know how it's for you. I can only be authentic and feel safe if I know what I'm talking about. If I have a plan. The better we get, the less of a plan we need. But at some point, we do need a plan. So how does this plan look like? How can we structure this plan so that we can step into the space with confidence, but most of all with competence? Yeah. So maybe one thing as a nugget. So when I think of designing or structuring a workshop, I always start with, okay, how do we get people to talk, to use their vocal cords as quick as possible? Because the earlier they speak, the more engaged they feel, the more likely they will re-engage. If the group is too large, don't ask everyone to introduce themselves. Ask them either for one word or break them up. Anyway, using vocal cords to start. Then the middle part, you do the work. And at the end, you have an outcome related to the purpose. If there is no purpose, don't even start it. Anyway, so what I would do is backward induction. So start with the end in mind. What is the purpose? What's the outcome? What is the next activity that I need to do so that we achieve this outcome I want to work away with? In order to do this activity, what are the ingredients that we need so that we'll get to these conversations, to the activity that will lead us to the outcome? So that's one thing that I could share. Workshop design to the core, and maybe what I've learned from behavioral economics about that. But I brought one slide because actually I think one thing that we discussed that I could do, and maybe it could also be a mix of all of that, is the art of asking questions. And it's very sad because now I see all the slide and not you. So the art of asking questions is for me the most important. What for Annette is the story is for me the question. And maybe stories and questions can coexist. And I believe that in 99% of the cases, we are asking the wrong questions. Because I believe we are asking questions that either a chatbot could answer or that destroy psychological safety faster than anything else. Because questions can be weapons and questions can be gifts.
I wanted to add something to that actually, Miriam, because I I went to a networking event for UXers 2 weeks ago, and I did a presentation there on the intersection between architecture and UX. And actually, it's about user research and how you ask questions. And actually, if you ask the wrong questions, you can lead to certain answers. And it's really important to ask the right questions to get the right information. Otherwise, yeah, you're building something that is completely wrong.
And thank you for adding that, Katrine. And also, in what order are you asking questions? I have seen facilitators asking the "how might we" question before the "what if" question or the "why" question. And to ask a group "how might we" to get into action to build something, if some of them are sitting there like, why should we in the first place? And then you won't get it. And then you wonder why the groups aren't creative enough. Why aren't they coming up with interesting ideas when we do a brainstorming? Well, because you're asking the wrong questions, would be my guess in 99% of the cases. So I would love to host a session about the art of asking questions and exploring why we are all asking the wrong questions, and sharing 3 reasons or 3 scenarios when I don't ask questions. So obviously, I don't ask questions when I'm not curious. Easy enough. And important for a facilitator and a podcast host. I don't ask questions if I know the answer, even if I train. I would never ask a question when I know the answer. And this might sound counterintuitive in training, because you want to know whether the group knows the answer, right? So how can you find out if they do if you don't ask them the question? Thing is, if they give you the wrong answer, what do? That's wrong. And then all of their focus is between their ears. And like, why did I ask the question? Why didn't I wait? Why didn't I do the homework? So instead of listening to the right answer, they will be caught in their monkey mind. If they give an answer, I want to be able to say, yes, and have you thought of something different? Or I want to meet them where they are with their question and build on that. I want them to open their mind through my question. So if I do want to know if the group knows the answer, then I ask, who knows the answer? I don't know the answer because I'm asking who does. Could be any of you. And suddenly I'm taking away the burden, and I'm taking away the option for someone to raise their hand and give me the wrong answer. Because this destroys psychological safety. Suddenly to sit there, no, that's wrong. So how can we rephrase questions so that we don't know the answer? We don't know who will answer. Which phases of the change curve do you remember that Jan shared? Or who remembers any of the phases of the change curve that Jan shared? Suddenly, everyone is open. Oh, nobody does. Oh, let me share with you. I'm sure that Jan remembers. Maybe Jan can share. Right? But what are the stages of the change curve? It's very daring to raise your hand. Yeah. And last but not least, and that's when I'm in the role of a facilitator and not of a trainer, I tend not to ask questions where there exists an answer. If ChatGPT can answer my question, it's not deep enough. Then it's a waste of all of our time, because then I ask ChatGPT and I don't ask the group. ChatGPT cannot answer any question about our personal perspectives, our personal experiences, about our emotions, and what we make out of it in our interpretations. And these are the questions that really matter. And these are the questions that we shall ask if we're bringing people together to share their 2 most important resources, that are their time and their attention. Because if you can have a chat with ChatGPT instead, then don't waste people's time to come together. And
That's good insight already now. So I'm very curious what you'll be sharing with us during your 3-hour session, if you're already spilling so much nuggets in only 15 minutes. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Miriam? Or do we have a quick look if there's any?
I would, if we do have 2 minutes,
I think we do.
I would love to hear if someone remembers. What was the most powerful question you have been asked? You can put it in the chat or unmute if you think of a question.
What is wrong with you is probably not a good answer, right?
Mm-hmm. Sounds a bit judgmental.
Oh, but that's a very good question.
I think maybe something like, what was your experience when, something like that. I don't know. So, yeah,
Someone remembers a question you've been asked where you're like, ooh.
I have one.
Yeah.
I actually used it to write another book. What I wasn't talking about, but I asked men and women, and just imagine how powerful are you on a scale of 1 to 10. Of course, there's no answer. And then once you have a number, tell me a story about the last time you were powerful. And so what erupted is that I ended up with all of these different like functional definitions of power that don't necessarily agree with the literature, and yet really represent and in many cases a gender difference between, you know, what you think is powerful and what you think is not powerful. That was fascinating.
Yeah, that's a beautiful research question. And to see all the different facets in a conversation trigger, it's beautiful. And I think especially asking these questions about the words that we think we understand, but then realize that we're actually just caught in our illusion of alignment. We think we're aligned, but actually we're not. Maybe to share some just food for thought, I would like to share the one question that the most powerful question that I have ever been asked. What would you do if you were not afraid? And this was the most powerful question I've been ever asked, because it divided my life into before that question and after that question. My answer to that question was I would quit my job. I didn't see that coming. And 4 months later, I quit my job. And when you reflect on the most powerful question that you've been asked, something will come to your mind. And I'm sure that it will be something personal, something that gave you a sense of power and agency on your own life. It was a question that left you with a, I haven't thought about that before. And it will be asked by someone who trusted you to find the answer, maybe not pushing you and answering right away. And it was someone who could hold that space for you to really explore inside of you, because this question was a gift. And for me, the art of asking questions is about the art of creating gifts for someone else to go a little bit deeper than they would usually do. And if we can do this for groups and hold the space where everyone can explore that, and maybe they can explore the questions together, that's for me mastery of facilitation. Yeah. That's me.
Perfect. Food for thought, definitely. And also the question that they asked you, what would you do if you're not afraid? It's probably going to keep me busy the rest of the evening to think if there's anything I would change or not. And if not, why not?
Yeah, the 5 whys. Yeah, Abdullah. What do you really want to achieve?
Miriam, I had one as well, inspired from what you just said. But what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And I think that the first time that someone asked me that, I was like, "You're right. Actually, nothing." And if I'm not able to answer in between 10 seconds, that means that I can take the leap. And because the worst that can happen is to die. So then you stop. But apart from this, literally, we can do anything, right?
Yeah. Reminds me of Tim Ferriss and his activity, the pre-mortem that he does.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. I have one. It's not really a question as someone asked me, but I've always had this plan, so this thing in my mind, okay, I'm going to work the following 10 years super hard with the idea of making a lot of money. And then after, I'm just saying 10 years, can be 50, whatever. And then so that I can chill and don't need to work anymore and enjoy life. And then, so it was not really a question, but my father at some point ended up in the hospital. He couldn't remember for longer than 30 seconds. So he was just retired. And in the end, everything was okay. It was something temporary. But then it suddenly struck me like, what if I work my whole life super hard without basically enjoying my life, because I want to postpone it to when I have a lot of money, but maybe not. And then it struck me, what if I don't make it 10 years and I die in 8 years without enjoying life? And then for me, then it clicked a little bit as well, like, okay, maybe the way I was planning on doing things is not the best way.